Live? We're live. Welcome to Frankly Speaking, where truth is our mission, rally our realm, set as we see it, and frankly as well. I'm Joe Spina, along with Paul Crowley. Nice to have you back, Paul.
Hey, Joe.
And two of three of the sages.
Right.
Malcolm is...
Malcolm is now taking care of his wife, okay? He thought he could make it today, but he can't. I think his wife needs a little more care. Maybe
Well, why don't we just, wish him luck.
All the best,
More.
Malcolm. Please let your wife be healthy and well.
Get straight to it now. They had 7 mayors in the city of Lynn. I call it Greater Lynn. Lynn's living mayors, if we can put that up there. And there they are, standing there. Notice Greater Lynn. And so I asked the question we put on the website, if we can put that up, it was a poll. And it said, how many of the former Lynn mayors live in Lynn? A1, B2, C3, D4, E5, or F6.
Can you go back to the list? I want to look again.
Okay, let's get back to the list. How many of Lynn's former mayors live in Lynn?
So McGee doesn't count because he's the current.
Of course not, he's the mayor.
Right, so I would say 1.
Just
You
Judy.
say 1, what do you say?
I said 2, but I think I'm wrong. Judy, I know, is in Lynn. She's in
Yeah?
Lynn.
She's the only one.
She's the only one, yeah.
Yeah, because Clancy's in Peabody, right?
Clancy's in Peabody.
DiVigilio,
DiVigilio is in
He's in
Linfield.
Linfield. He's in Linfield.
Right.
He was in Lynn.
Swampscott and Nahant.
the little guys in the Hunt. Yeah.
Nahant, yeah. So it's Greater Lynn, right? That's why they always talk about Greater Lynn. They don't talk about Lynn.
Well, most of the elected officials, they only are here as long as they have to be. As soon as they don't have to be, they.
So is that telling
Do you
that
have
the
to
mayors of the city of Lynn,
Do you have to live in Lynn to be the mayor? Do you have to by statute?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
actually you don't have to live in a district, in a representative district in order to be elected. You don't have to live in that
Right.
district. You can move into it. It ain't over until it's over. Did you know that? The fat lady's got to give a song. This has to do with the budget, Paul. We've been waiting on the numbers. That's what McGee said, waiting on the numbers.
Right.
Don't forget, isn't this August 1st now? This is a month into the fiscal year, is it not, Paul?
Yep.
The
That's
budget
right.
has not been agreed upon yet. There has been a $19 million increase in the state aid to schools. So school spending is now 186 roughly, rounded off, right?
Okay.
Right.
And by the way, that 19 million didn't help the city reduce the city's burden one bit.
Actually increased it probably, right?
Exactly.
Because the maintenance of effort goes up.
That's right. The city has to pony up a percentage of that money.
25%.
So city unions ratified changes to the city's health plan, and I suspect that they claim it's 4.3 million over 3 years, Paul?
Yeah.
Said 19 million increase to schools.
Yeah. And the Chapter 70 funding money from the state, they got an increase of 19 million
But here,
for the city of
What are they
Lynn.
going to do with the money?
I have no idea, Paul.
No, they said that the money. You mean the money they saved because of the contract? Because of the health.
No, 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 no,
19
no.
million.
Oh, the
The
19
19
million.
million
Is more money
is
from the
over
state.
and above
Right.
what they gave last year and what they call
So what are they
Chapter
going to do
70
with the
money.
$19 million?
I think
I'll tell you
I
what,
think-
Paul, they're going to try to cover the 300 to 500 new unaccompanied minors that are going to be coming to the school system this fall. That's what they better do, right?
and that increases it that much.
Well, you know what it costs?
That-
for,
that-
it's
I mean, that makes no sense.
$50,000 per head per student, correct, Paul?
Yep.
All right, that's not with special interest.
So 15,000 times 1,000 is 15 million, right? So
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
Wow.
So if we pick up 500, that's 7.5
But it's an
million.
average of 15,000, and so people who have English as a second language, would they be more?
Of course, Paul.
Yeah, all right.
Of course. Yeah, that's a great point. So it's not just the base; it's that there are all these other services that have to be added into it.
That's all fine.
And nobody.
That's just unbelievable.
But I think that's just a wash. The 19 million when it comes in, it all goes out to certain things they have to spend it on.
Do they ever publish where these kids go after supposedly graduation?
What?
When these kids finish through the whole time of
Well, you know what? This whole show is going to be like the tale of two cities. We're going to take a look at Lynn. And then we're going to feature Baltimore, which is very instrumental. I mean, if you take a look at the way Baltimore, and what happened to Baltimore, that's the flight path that Lynn's on. And the end result may be the same. So, folks, stay tuned. Anyway,
But
the projection is that Lynn should have money set aside. This is what Sayre said, Council President Sayre, as a consequence of the renegotiation of the health plan. I don't buy it. Do you think there's going to be any money in the reserve fund?
Well, the way I would see it is the plan would be if the budget comes out the way it's supposed to, and not everything is predictable, it doesn't necessarily play out the way you plan. Assuming everything plays out in a positive way, they will have money to put in the reserve. If not, they'll have to tap into it.
That's a big if, right?
Yeah.
Now, here, the fat lady, like I said, hasn't sung because we haven't formulated or we haven't finalized the budget, even though we're living as if we have a new budget. Listen to this one. They haven't finished negotiating with the unions yet.
The union's giving them say to go back and give back some of the health benefits as far as they're going to be paid. They're keeping the Pilgrim Health Plan, but they're going to have to give back a little bit. They're going to have to pay a little bit more when they go for the co-payments and things like that. But they're only going to save, but in the money they're saving, they're only going to save the retroactive pay.
I understand that. It's 80. That's the whole point.
Right.
4.3 million.
Right.
Is basically what the retractive pay
over
a 3-year period of
right,
time.
over
That's
3
what it
years,
covers.
right.
Correct.
Right.
All right. Lurking.
Right.
As I put lurking raises for 1,740 members of the Lynn Teachers Union. And here's what the president said, quote unquote, and that's Sheila O'Neill, right?
Okay.
Here's a quote: "Compensation is always on the table."
Right.
What's that translate to, Paul? What's the translation of that?
It's going to be more money in
We
the
want
budget.
more money.
Where's the money? But where's the money going to come from if it's not in the
But you
budget?
tell me, Ralph.
I don't understand.
Well,
You don't look like a fat lady to me.
Can they do a supplementary? They have to do a supplemental budget?
They would, and a couple of times in the past, there's like a state board that you go to. It's like a mediation board or arbitration of some sort. So if the unions and the city management can't come to agreement on,
You go to arbitration.
you go to arbitration.
But still, you got to pay more money.
And if you lose the arbitration,
You get killed.
you have to pay the money. And
Well,
how
you
do you
got-
pay the money if you have?
But even if they meet in the middle ground, it's not going to be. It's not going to be
It
zero.
all has to be as a dollar.
Yeah. No, even after arbitration, they're going to find some middle ground, correct? Which means an increase in taxes.
Right.
Agreed?
Well, they have to increase taxes or lay off people. It has to do one or the
You
other.
think they're going to lay off people?
No, I don't think so.
Huh?
Well, no. See, here's the part that I don't fully understand. So we have a budget, $368 million. It's balanced. All right.
Closer to 385.
There are some unknowns that we don't know. We don't know what the snow budget will be.
We don't know how many kids are going to be in the school
We
system
don't know
in a
right.
month.
Okay, so
Yeah, but
let's just assume that it all works out even, with the exception of the negotiations around wages. If the city agrees to a 3% increase in wages, which people could argue is like the cost of living type of thing, which is really not an unreasonable thing. You want people to be able to have the same buying power with their money. But that 3% on top of the wages, let's assume that wages represent 70% of the budget. That's like $210 million. So 3% of that is over $6 million
In itself.
in itself.
And that's into perpetuities.
Right. So we have a budget that's balanced, and then all of a sudden, retroactively, we're going to have to pay them $6 million.
Which unbalances the budget.
Right. What do you do about that? How do you,
All right.
Well,
and how can you even say that the budget is balanced?
So the fat lady is never going to get to sing. 781-780-9460. Any of you folks out there understand this budget? Let me know, because I don't.
Ivan?
I say it all the time, I just don't understand. There's no education going on in the city of Lynn. And look
There's
at
no education going on in a lot of places.
okay, but you and I, all of us, are here right now. Look at the money that you're spending for nothing.
That can be argued. We're going to move on, folks, but just take a look. The fat lady hasn't sung. Where's Moulton? I'd like to know where he is. Would you put that little... I mean, look at all those people up there,
Does
Paul.
he get on the stage?
Did you see him?
No.
Do you see him among them? Where is he?
I watched it. I didn't see him
So
at all.
he's running for president, but he's not in the debate
Has not been in one debate yet.
because he
But-
doesn't have enough donors or whatever.
Yeah, but he's got General McChrystal supporting him. Who? General McChrystal. That's right, who?
Who's General
And
McChrystal?
Petraeus, right?
Not Petraeus, McChrystal.
McChrystal.
That's the guy that was in charge of Afghanistan. Remember?
He was under Clinton, under Obama, I believe. He was
I know
a big
that.
Obama
Crystal.
guy. Yeah.
In fact, they had a little problem. Well, the one thing they did, and I watched part of the debates last night. I don't know if you folks out there did. CNN, by the way, is taking a big hit. They only had 7 million, which is nothing compared to.
Why? Because a lot of people don't have CNN on their cable package. Why they picked that station, I don't know. That's a lot to do with it.
Well,
They
you-
picked
I
that
thought that you
station
had to
because
have it.
Zucker, is that his name? Jeff Zucker?
Zucker, yeah.
He's very friendly with Harris, you know. That's his candidate.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, they tried to groom her.
You know, prosecutors, attorneys general they should be disqualified from being president because they spend their entire time trashing people to give them headlines so that they can actually run. So they actually ruin people's lives so that they can become, prominent candidates.
You know, we'll probably agree with you. How about General Flynn? How about Paul Manafort, huh?
Yep.
They might agree with you a little bit, huh?
Yep.
But they basically talked and they back and forth on this thing called healthcare, universal healthcare, payer option, all these different things. You know,
Medicare
they have
for all.
They call the leftists, you know, the universal healthcare ones, the communists and the socialists on one side battling what they consider the moderates.
Right.
Now, let me tell you something. The moderates weren't that moderate. So I throw a poll question up to you folks. It goes something like this. Do you favor universal health care? That's essentially what this election is going to be about. If you favor universal health care, which means rationing and the rest of it, I don't know if we got that graphic, then that's the poll.
You know what's interesting about this is,
What?
so the left, and so what was the left before Trump came in? Who was the leader of the left before Trump? Just,
Who do you say it was? Bernie?
no, Barack Obama, right?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Right? And what was his signature legislation when he was
Obamacare.
Obamacare?
Right.
So Medicare for all scraps Obamacare.
Right.
He was afraid to go there. He tried to do it, he tried to sneak it in through the back door with the public option and the mandates. He said, you know what? It won't work unless we tax a whole bunch of people that don't get sick. And the whole bunch of people that don't get sick happen to be my grandchildren or my children because they're young.
Actually, Biden was trying to tell you that last night, that it's impossible because the cost is overwhelming. It can't be
The
done.
majority of people fall into the category where they were going to need mandatory health care, but you can't have universal health care because you can't afford it.
But they
No
want to
kidding.
have Medicare for all means
So
what?
why they waste so much time talking about it, I have no
they
idea.
want- Well, I'll tell you why. Because, I take a look at these
It's
kids-
impossible.
Wait a second. What else are they promising? They're going to say, oh, I'm going to forgive your student debt. Really?
That's impossible too.
I understand that. But they're giving freebies to everybody, and everybody says, oh, whoopee, for me. I want
Elizabeth
that.
Warren, we have to think big.
Yeah.
The guy Yang wants to give
she's sitting on
$12,000
15
to
million, Paul.
everybody.
She was flipping property out
Actually,
there.
to be quite frank with you,
Yeah.
that's the only thing that's actually possible.
What?
Yang, he wants to give $12,000 to everybody. Just give him
Who?
a check.
That's possible.
Yang.
That's, actually, that is not that far off the
know.
reservation compared to these other things.
Who else wanted to do that? Same thing, same figure, $12,000. He was a Republican president. Who wanted to do that?
You tell me.
Nixon, Richard Nixon. Yes, he did. I remember that.
Frankly, Joe. Oh, by the way, last week's poll, Mueller testimony, did it in any way, shape, or manner influence you to want to have him impeached, right?
Right, so the 33% of the people that watch CNN,
Think he should be impeached.
and then the 67% of the people that pay attention.
Right.
Probably. Or how about, did anybody know you know who's taking a really big hit? Rachel Maddow.
Yeah.
She's completely folded after the,
Yeah, nobody watches her anymore.
because they know. Frankly, Joe. Avram, the Jewish kid, said to me the other day, there's a lot of things I don't understand. Like what I asked. He said racism, Me Tooism, transgenderism, anti-Semitism. Well, maybe because you're an old guy like me, Avram, you ever think of that?
It could very well be.
Then the whole dust up at Baltimore hit the fan, all that stuff, and got me thinking. Maybe the reason there's a lot of things Avram doesn't understand is encapsulated in the way the whole Baltimore saga was portrayed. Baltimore, the tale of two cities. Let's throw that up there. Take a look. These two guys pitted against each other. You notice the picture up in the upper northeast corner? Doesn't that look like Lynn? The
It
graphic
does.
art.
Looks
You
like
see
one
it
of the
there?
murals,
Huh?
yeah.
Has that look. So, I want to play a little clip, a 30-second clip if we could, to give a little background. If you would, throw that up there. This is Elijah Cummings in 1999.
The same children that I watched 14 or 15 years ago as they grew up, now walking around like zombies. This is only 40 miles away from here.
Refer to the city as infested or something?
Well, the point being is he was saying that there's a lot of problems, drug-infested city, right? It's only 40 miles from Washington, D.C.
It has been. It has been like that for a
That's-
long,
And he's
long
been
time.
running it for 20 years, and he's never...
40 years.
Right.
Well, since 99, when he said this.
Well, that was 99, but
Yeah.
he was there long before then,
Right.
right? And, you know, folks, in case you're interested, Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House, grew up in Baltimore. Her father and her brother
Were mayors.
Right.
of Baltimore
Right.
in its golden era.
Right.
You know, Baltimore was a jewel of a city.
Right.
If we can, I want to throw up what happened on TV the other night on the Tucker Carlson show. Take a peek at this Baltimore situation, because it's very instructive.
Well, good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. Happy Monday. Over the weekend, the president got bored and decided to see if he could make Democrats defend the most dangerous, corrupt place in the country. And of course he could. It wasn't hard. He just sent a flurry of tweets criticizing the city of Baltimore and the congressman who represents it, Elijah Cummings. The president called Baltimore, quote, a disgusting rat and rodent-infested hellhole, a corrupt mess that no human being would want to live in. A lot of people who've never been to Baltimore claim to be deeply offended by those remarks. But one person who seemed to agree with them was the former mayor of Baltimore, Catherine Pugh. She'd said something remarkably similar just last year.
About a year ago, city leaders identified some of the city's most violent neighborhoods
What the hell? We should just take all this down.
to target
Ooh, you can smell the rats.
under Baltimore's Violence Reduction Initiative.
Ooh, Jesus.
Just last week, we went with Mayor Pugh as she toured an East Baltimore neighborhood.
Oh my God, you can smell the dead animals.
Blocks of dilapidated buildings help to hide the addiction that's crippled this community.
What the hell, said the mayor. You can smell the rotting rats. The mayor did not explain why she didn't clean up the rotting rats. That footage, by the way, got almost no attention when it ran on a local news station. Neither did the story just 10 days ago about the deputy police commissioner of Baltimore who was robbed at gunpoint by 4 thugs while out to dinner with his wife. People were not talking about that story in Georgetown this weekend. In fact, if there's one thing that virtually everyone who lives in Washington aggressively doesn't care about, it's Baltimore. Baltimore's 40 miles away, but it's a different world. You could live your entire life in D.C. and never visit or think about Baltimore. Most people in D.C. do just that. Or did. Then came this weekend when Orange Mussolini weighed in on the subject, and suddenly Baltimore became holy ground, a sacred city of light that only an infidel would disparage. An infidel, or perhaps, and this will not surprise you, a racist. Because honestly, only a hardened bigot would criticize a place as awesome as Baltimore. That was the media consensus over the weekend. Watch.
This weekend, racist messages raging from the president's Twitter feed.
Donald Trump masterfully makes it a racist debate about Baltimore.
Another racist attack on an African-American member of Congress and the city he represents.
Well, the president is, as he usually is, or often is, disgusting and racist.
He uses a racist appeal. He uses a bait and switch.
In the most bigoted and racist way.
A racist president who attacks people because they are African Americans.
He says he's not a racist, but the racists believe he's a racist.
How to respond when a president says racist things.
A racist who makes ever more outrageous racist remarks.
Donald Trump is a bigot and a racist. This isn't even subjective.
Donald Trump and his people think white people are so racist that the way to get them to vote is to be racist.
This is just who Donald Trump is. He's just an old racist.
You know.
So, my point being, and by the way, folks, I'd advise you to go onto YouTube and plug it in and take a peek at that in its entirety.
Wait,
I want to ask him because he had things he doesn't understand. He doesn't understand racism. You understand racism? That help with that clarify it for you?
This man who represents the city of Baltimore, Cummings.
Yes.
He's the racist because he did not do a damn thing about it. Not
Well,
Donald Trump.
and I would argue that everybody that calls Donald Trump a racist because of his statements is, in fact, declaring that there is a big difference between white people and black people, and they're the ones that are making it a big point.
Let me get to Ralph. Ralph, you watched the debate last night. How many times did they say racist? How many times did they call
about
him?
1,000 times.
All night long,
All
the
night
candidates
long.
running for president, United States Democrats,
Absolutely.
call the president
But also
a racist.
the moderators did too.
Right.
Yes, Don Lemon called him a racist 2 nights in a row.
And they're supposed to be like done middle,
exactly.
right? Balls and strikes.
So what was your impression of Baltimore?
Baltimore. I just pulled out one year. In 2015, there were 344 murders in Baltimore. The same year, there were 339 murders in New York. New York has 8 million people. Baltimore has 600,000 people. But
And by
besides
the way,
Boston.
Baltimore has lost 28% of its population.
Its population has
over the
gone
last
way
20
down.
years.
It's gone way down.
I heard something that alarmed me. You know, so they talk about murders per 100,000 people.
Uh-huh.
The city of Baltimore has a higher rate of murders per 100,000 people than the worst country on the planet.
That's right.
You want to say something, Paul? You're way ahead of the game. Pedro, if we can go to the second part of the clip, because that will probably fortify what you just said. Underline it. Pedro, let's see if we can get that up there.
Got that?
Okay.
It's race baiting, says Al Sharpton, a noted authority on the subject. Pretty funny. Republicans are very easy to intimidate. They still get red in the face when CNN calls them racist. But they shouldn't. It's not real. Nobody means it, least of all Al Sharpton. If you paid him money, he would stop criticizing you, and you should probably. It's just easier. The whole thing is a campaign tactic dreamed up at the DNC. Once the Russia conspiracy imploded, Democrats and their lackeys in the media moved on to the only other message they have, which is, shut up, racist! It didn't work in 2016 for Hillary, but they're hopeful it will work this time. They're trying hard. We'll see. Meanwhile, Baltimore, the actual city of Baltimore, not the metaphor of Baltimore, could desperately use some attention. So it's good news that it's finally getting some. If anything, Trump's tweets underplay the crisis there. Last year, the city of Baltimore recorded 309 homicides. That's a rate of more than 50 per 100,000 people. To put it in perspective, if Baltimore were a country, it would have the 4th highest murder rate in the world, barely below Venezuela. Or think of it this way. Last week, the left denounced President Trump for reaching a deal with Guatemala that declares the country a safe location for asylum seekers. Liberals told us that Guatemala has too much crime and too many gangs to be considered safe. Making people stay in Guatemala is a human rights violation, they told us. And yet, and here's the amazing part, Baltimore's murder rate is double that of Guatemala. In almost any way that a city can be a disaster, Baltimore is. More than 22% of the city lives in poverty. Almost 65% of all children in Baltimore grow up in single-parent households. The schools, not surprisingly, are a catastrophe. In 2017, 1/3 of Baltimore's high schools had 0 students who were proficient in math. Let that sink in. In 13 of Baltimore's 39 high schools, not a single student, not one student, was deemed proficient at math. You'd think that would be a national scandal. You'd think that Elijah Cummings would be in a hunger strike until that's fixed. Bernie Sanders, to his credit, by the way, visited Baltimore a few years ago and was shocked by it. Watch.
Anyone who took the walk that we took around this neighborhood would not think you're in a wealthy nation. You would think that you were in a third world country.
Fascinating, isn't
It's
it?
unbelievable. The DEA reported that 10% of Baltimore's population are addicted to heroin. 10%, that's 64,000
But
people.
that's all regardless. The fact of the matter is this man Cummings doesn't acknowledge the fact by saying, yeah, listen, I'm not doing my job.
You know what I wish would come out of this thing? I wish that Donald Trump and Elijah Cummings would sit down and say, what can we do about Baltimore?
Precisely,
That's
Bob.
what should be going on right
That's
now.
the purpose of the show.
Well, Carson wanted to meet. Carson wanted to meet with him. He won't meet
Cummings
with him.
is angry that he threw it up in his face.
Right. Because, and in reality, Cummings spends every breathing moment
In Washington,
doing it,
D.C.
breaking Donald Trump's chops.
Wait a second. Cummings' wife is under investigation for playing some cake deals, making a barrel of money. How much money do you think Donald Trump poured into Baltimore last year?
16 billion or something?
Yeah, 16 billion. No, actually 18 billion. And you know what he said?
For what?
For Cummings, where did it go?
I'm asking, where did it go?
Okay, you talked about school systems. I'm pointing this out. Paul, you hit the nail on the head. These politicians, forget about calling each other racist and the rest of it. Take a look, there's a problem.
Fix it.
Fix it. That has to happen here in Lynn. This is what you're talking about. The educational system. What do you think they spend per pupil in Baltimore?
I can't even.
To have high school kids who are not proficient at math?
And but here's the thing. Who's to blame for all this? You know who's to blame for all this? Black people in and of themselves. And they throw it in our face because now they say, now it's time to get back at you.
I don't know. I can't go. It's deeper than that. There's a societal problem, and we better start recognizing it. And we can't make excuses and paper over it. You can't turn around and have everybody in the news media calling the President of the United States a racist on every other corner, all right? And the fact that he's trying to help people out there. Now, I don't know what his sentiments are. I mean, all of a sudden, they ginned up some old tape from Ronald Reagan talking to Nixon that's pretty offensive, you know what I mean?
Right.
My point is that a lot of people have said offensive things about people that they didn't want out there. I might have said a few things about your tribe at some point in time.
Did you really?
I may have. I don't know, So, I mean, it's...
Right. And 50 years ago, it was a different time.
Right.
Yeah.
But
the point is that you have human suffering taking place in Baltimore, and the genesis of this whole argument between Cummings and Trump was over Cummings. He read the riot act to the guy from the border guy in charge of the border. Yeah. He took him over the coals. Right. Said that they're living in feces. Right. And, he talked about the border as, and Trump said, wait a second. First of all, you haven't been at the border. Secondly, you're bullying the guy that's trying to do something about the border. And take a look at your own hometown.
Right.
That's all it came about.
Ben Carson's a black man. Has a lot of power. He's head of the housing, head of HUD, and he won't even meet him. He will not meet with a black man who has power to get some of this housing, some of this money for housing. Did
you know that he practiced medicine at Johns Hopkins?
Right.
And do you know that he said that if you break his heart, that they had to have to do surgery to save the lives of some of these kids. They have to put them back into their households in Baltimore.
He said he kept the kid 1 day old. He wasn't supposed to, according to the insurance. He kept him a whole day old because they didn't want to send him back to the squalor that the kid would have had to go back to after he operated on him. That's pretty sad.
So the point becomes this. There's later on in this clip, it's really fascinating because they talk about, here you have a city with the problems it has, right? That makes Guatemala looks like paradise in comparison. And yet we're allowing a whole bunch of illegals to flood the cities that's already got problems, which what's it do? Makes problems worse.
Right. So I want to take a page out of the book of Hungary. I was reading recently that they, because their population is declining, so they have put in a program where they actually will pay young married couples
to have kids
$33,000 if they have 3 kids. Mm-hmm. Now, that's not exactly what I'm thinking about, but I thought about it. What we really need to do is bring back the family unit.
Kidding.
Right. So if we could convince young adults to get an education, get a job, get married, and then have kids in that order, there should be a reward for that.
But but just 1 second. The problem with what you just said, it's past that. It's too late.
No, it's not. You got to break the cycle.
It's too late.
I'm almost on your side on this one. I know about Hungary. It's going to take a lot of years.
But they're looking to, that's so that they can grow the population. I want to strengthen the family unit.
What's the fastest growing population in the world? You know what it is?
Lynn.
No. Actually happens to be the Amish.
Is that right?
The Amish. The Amish in a couple hundred years will have more population than the total population
That's because
of the United States.
With a strong family unit.
Like
That's
Abram,
right.
they don't have
8,
cable.
9, 10 kids a pop. They don't believe in birth control.
Right.
They don't believe in
electricity.
And they keep to themselves. They don't want anything to enter that's not clean and pure.
But like Abram, they don't have cable, so they have a lot of time to make love.
They
That's
don't
why
like
they make it.
technology that much. But the point of the matter is that their population is, I think it's doubling every 20 years or so, which is phenomenal.
It's going up, yeah.
It's phenomenal, right?
What you're saying should have been done 20 years ago.
Oh, I agree. It would have been good if we had done this a long time ago.
It's almost impossible now.
The reason for it being is the economics. They turned around, and what happened is a woman, like my grandkids, who are marrying age now, some of them, they can't afford to have kids. They both have to work.
It's very, very difficult.
Right, and I'm not suggesting that they have kids. What I'm suggesting is that they follow a logical order of maturing. Get an education, get a job, get married, then have kids.
Yes.
And if you do it in that, if you get married,
that's success, by the way.
if you get married after you've had a good education and you've got a permanent job, you get a reward and you get enough money for a down payment on a house or something.
Okay, but I'm telling you, that doesn't work anymore. We are too far gone. We've let it go. We've let it lapse for so many years. It's impossible to walk into Baltimore and grab a family at random.
right
and say,
now-
look, blah 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 blah, and they're gonna say, no way, baby, we cannot do it.
But right now, the incentive is to not get married and to have a lot of kids
No, the
and
incentive
live on
with
the
these
welfare system.
With these people, the incentive is to try to stay alive, to try to get to see tomorrow. Okay, that's what they're focusing on.
Right.
Okay, staying alive, and they're not doing a very good job at it. And who do you blame? I blame the people in charge of them.
Right.
On that, let's get back to the last segment. If we can, Pedro, let's see if we can wrap it all up. And I hope it's instructive to you folks out there, because this is happening in America today. This is not Guatemala. It's not third world country. This is the United States. And you better pay attention, because urban America is...
But, that's the thing. Most people don't know that's happening.
It's happening.
But
and that's why we bring it to the attention.
Whoa,
Here we go.
wait a second. Is Bernie Sanders a white supremacist? No. Actually, he's just an old-fashioned liberal. That's how Democrats used to think. If they saw misery and urban decay, they wanted to fix it. Not anymore. Modern progressives are different from that. Modern progressivism isn't about helping the people beneath you. It's about establishing moral superiority over them. It's a revolution aimed downward, a boot in the face of people beneath you. That's what it's about. So Democrats support the status quo in Baltimore. It doesn't bother them. And that's not surprising, because they created it. The city hasn't had a Republican mayor in more than 50 years. Things really began to fall apart after the 2015 riots there. And this didn't get a lot of attention because, again, nothing that happens in Baltimore gets any attention until Trump tweets about it. But it was a big deal when the Obama administration imposed a consent decree on the city's police department, because they're racist, that in effect radically restricted its ability to protect citizens. And not surprisingly, crime exploded. Elijah Cummings, by the way, praised that consent decree. He's very much part of the problem in Baltimore. From her taxpayer-funded vacation in Italy today, Nancy Pelosi defended Elijah Cummings and the city of Baltimore. And Pelosi would know she grew up in Baltimore. Her father was the mayor of Baltimore. Her brother was the mayor of Baltimore. But like most rich progressives, Pelosi herself is long gone. She's in San Francisco now, in Pacific Heights. She's got a winery in Napa. She's not interested in going back to Baltimore. It's easier just to give other people lectures about Baltimore. Most Democrats feel that way. They've given up on the poor. Instead of trying to fix Baltimore's problems and rescue its people, they've decided to import a new population of people, many of them illegal aliens. Baltimore City Councilman Zeke Cohen once bragged about it on this show. Watch.
My only concern is for the people who are already here. Does it make a school better when people move in who don't speak English? Is it good for the kids who are already in the school, do you think? Does it improve the education? Is it fair to the taxpayers? Have you thought about that?
I think the greatest asset in our city is our diversity. And I was joined by an amazing group of immigrant youth yesterday in passing this resolution.
Hold on, slow down. That doesn't mean anything. I asked you a sincere question. Does it improve a school when a lot of people move in who don't speak English? Does the school get better?
Absolutely.
Yeah, schools get a lot better when you import a lot of people who don't speak English. Actually, it turns out the schools haven't gotten better at all. But Zeke Cohen doesn't care. Nobody on the left cares because they don't care about Baltimore. Illegal immigration has been devastating for Baltimore and a lot of cities like Baltimore. The last thing any poor, desperate community needs is even more poor, desperate people. It's not an attack on anybody. It's a fact. Go to Lewiston, Maine if you don't believe it. Illegal immigration drives down wages for low-skilled workers nationwide. They suck up education and health care dollars. Democrats do not care about this. Why? Because illegal immigrants are reliable votes for them. They are a pathway to power. And for Democrats, that is worth sacrificing a city or 2 or 10 or a whole country.
That's a reality check.
Yeah.
Sure is.
And you said something, all of you were emotional about certain things that were said. You turned on and said there's nothing worse than
a stupid Jew. What are they going
racist?
Everybody's a racist today.
The point being is was there anything in that segments, in those 3 segments, that was off base?
No.
What it all comes down to, at the first debate, when Kamala Harris picked on Biden for saying you did not support busing, what does busing do? Think about it very carefully. You take kids from one part of the world, bring them to another part of the world, and all those people in that part of the world go someplace else.
Right.
That's what you do with busing. You accomplish nothing.
Right.
You just take the problem from one place to another place and have it explode.
Right.
That's not the way you handle things.
One of the candidates, I forget which one it was, he wants busing to come back again.
Lovely.
To bus all over
Another
the place.
gifted genius.
Right.
Okay,
So
really.
how
truly.
important do you think, I mean, there were 2 debates,
Right.
Tuesday and Wednesday, right, last night. Did any of them talk about Baltimore? Anybody up in the stage?
Never came up.
Nope.
Never came up.
Should it have come up?
Absolutely. Should have been the top conversation. And let me tell you something. In the debates 4 years ago, when there was a whole bunch of Republicans, they talked about the issues of the day. They brought them up because they were germane to the discussion.
Is Baltimore unique, or is Baltimore a symptom of what's happening in Chicago, San Fran, Los Angeles?
I think so.
Philadelphia?
You know, funny, Baltimore doesn't have that problem. Baltimore's Hispanic population is only about 4%.
We're not talking about that. I'm talking about urban pride and decay. By the way, I want people to understand this has got nothing to do with ethnicity or race.
No.
But you see, that doesn't bring in the votes to vote for a politician. Right. That's why no one pays any attention to it.
Why does Baltimore have so many problems as opposed to Boston, which Boston has its problems, but nothing like Baltimore?
Because of
why
leadership.
Consolidated power.
It's exactly. I mean, you know, we put the federal government, as I mentioned, last year, put $18 billion into that city.
Right.
Do you know what the budget for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is, the total budget?
$43 billion.
Right. So it's almost a half, 40% of our total budget went to one city, and 600,000.
And accomplished nothing.
Exactly.
Where'd all the money go?
Look,
you tell me.
No, you tell me.
Well, Trump is asking that question. He's saying to Elijah Cummings, by the way, why aren't you investigating this?
That could
You're
bulldoze the whole
investigating
damn
me
city
for Russian
and
collusion,
build
right?
skyscrapers.
I mean, this is the whole point.
But
what are we doing?
why
Spending money, going after
Right.
General Flynn and George Papadopoulos and all these people over nothing and spending a fortune doing it, and we have a mayor of a city saying, "Oh, I smell the rats." And we spent $18 billion there with no accomplishment, and nobody investigates it?
You see, that's the reason why a 10-year-old kid can get a gun and kill somebody.
Right.
They have a no-shoot zone.
Right.
Okay? That's people wonder, how could such a thing happen?
But
it's very simple.
Why is there a difference between Boston and Baltimore? Same population, some kind of demographics, structurally, historically, as a deep Port Harbor, it has the same kind of.
Okay, so tell me why. Get to the point.
Well, I'll tell you what you know why it's different.
Yeah, why?
Because Boston has businesses. They have good jobs.
So what are you
like
telling me?
My daughter lives there and she works there.
In that corridor with Philadelphia and Washington D.C. and probably per capita, the richest state in the country, happens to be Maryland, right?
The corridor, yes.
All right. And you're telling me they can't get jobs in industry there?
They can't because of they've kicked a lot of people out because of regulation. In Boston,
Well, who made the regulation? The city of Baltimore?
No,
Who made the regulation? Who handcuffed Baltimore?
It probably has a lot to do with what it takes to do business in Baltimore. If you gotta like pay everybody off, it makes it harder to do. People just say, you know what, I'm not going to bother. Then they see
my dear man, what's going on in Baltimore? That's a Holocaust.
Right.
It is a Holocaust.
You're right. I agree.
It's a modern day Holocaust. It really is.
And what you're saying, that's impossible to take what you said and straighten it out there.
Take a look at my daughter and her friends in Boston.
Well, I'd like to know what we could do. I mean, I'm open to ideas. I just want to see something get better.
Why do my daughter and all of her friends, which do very, very well, all live in Boston?
Yeah.
And spend money in Boston, and Boston is completely different than Baltimore. Why? Because
Boston, technically speaking, is an intellectual area.
There you go. You got it. You hit it right on the nose.
Okay.
Avram's got it.
What is John Hopkins? Chopped liver?
Basically,
the University of Maryland, chopped liver. They're both in Baltimore, by the way.
But look at us. We're all Harvard, BU, BC. Look at all the schools.
All right.
But I'll bet you that those two sections of Baltimore are not where they find all the rats.
Here's the irony of it all. Part of the district that Cummings represents has a higher rate of college graduates than the national average, has a higher income than the national average. It's the true tale of two cities,
right.
One of despair and one of wealth. You want to talk about a complete society, dichotomy, it's Baltimore. And who ran Baltimore for the last 50 years?
The Dems.
The Democrats. Who drove Detroit into bankruptcy? The Democrats.
Right.
Why are policemen in New York getting water thrown on their heads? Because they got a cuckoo mayor. Okay? And on it goes. And these folks out here, they're always going to vote for these Democrats. Why? I have no idea.
Right.
It baffles me.
Because they make them promises that they can't keep.
Look at New York under Dinkins. I remember one time I had a business appointment on Avenue of the Americas. I was walking down the street. Now, this is a big part of town. It's an expensive part of town. You know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Madison Avenue. I'm walking. There's bodies. I'm walking over bodies in downtown Manhattan.
Dead?
And the dead Dinkins. Well, I don't know if they were dead or not. I wasn't going to check.
Bad enough for roadkill.
But what happened? What happened? How did that change when they got who?
Yeah, they got Giuliani.
He laid the lumber.
We got to move on. Right. Horrible news, and then we got to get to an Avram special.
Ooh, wow.
Horrible news. Let's get that up there. All right, quickly. This happened around the world. Drive-by shooting outside Miami synagogue. And anti-Semitism's up there again. Guy's minding his own business, going to church or the synagogue. Bing, 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 gets blasted. Chicagoland weekend. 9 killed, 39 wounded.
That's all by gun, right?
Yeah. Dozen fires in Baltimore, by the way. Overnight fire last week. A dozen fires. Film studios appeasing China the way they did Nazis in 1930. You know that, Paul.
Yeah.
They're owning everything, and their content they're putting is favorable to them. Top Democratic fundraise staffer resigns after Hispanic caucus demands person of color be appointed. And by the way, it wasn't Hispanic. They appointed a black. Now the Hispanic caucus is all mad. 220 or 2020.
Whatever happened to hiring the best person for the job?
Right.
That doesn't work anymore, Paul. Yeah. 2020 Democratic hopefuls cheer on Al Sharpton in his feud with Trump. All right? Can you believe that?
Yeah.
Now, Al Sharpton owes $4.5 million in taxes. You understand that?
Right, but nobody will chase him for it because he will drive you crazy and
they pay him off.
Right.
Sharpton said of Trump, he has a particular venom for black people and people of color. No, he doesn't. He has a particular venom for hustlers, rights hustlers like him.
Right.
All right, how about this one? This is in Brazil. 57 murdered in a prison riot in Brazil, 16 decapitated, and guess what? They play soccer with their heads. That's horrible news.
That I didn't need to know.
To Avram. This has to do with the Equality Act that we talked about last week. Let's put that cartoon up there.
First of all,
go ahead.
Rep Goldman, every week he comes up with something and he's putting a stamp on it. He's screaming out loudly because we're not in Kansas anymore. Public spaces. I don't understand what it is about transgenders. I don't know what they are. I don't know what it is. Please excuse my ignorance. Please, will someone call in and tell me what a transgender really is? Because we're not in Kansas anymore. And thank God we're not in Baltimore.
I don't think I've ever met a transgender.
And thank you, Hirsch, for spilling it out. And maybe some people will pay attention to this and make a statement about it, okay?
Here's my question. Why do we spend so much time on transgenderism, on sexism, xenophobia, and all of these different isms, instead of taking care of the people in Baltimore who are suffering?
It's the elite's way of keeping us preoccupied with things that
And
don't matter.
every letter in the alphabet attached to them.
Ralph,
Right.
they can't call a manhole cover anymore. Do you know that? I mean, that's
know.
a big issue.
It's ridiculous.
Meanwhile, the rats are taking over Baltimore.
That's
and
right.
pretty soon, they're on their way to Lynn, aren't
And they're
they?
coming up to the manhole cover.
Exactly. But they're renamed.
Talking about anti-Semitism, there's a country club right stone's throw from where I live that they brag they don't allow Jews. Well, okay, fine. I mean, maybe they don't like to play golf with Jews. Rabbi Axelrod, who's been on this show, I wouldn't want to play golf with him. Right. I'm going to walk around for 4 hours with a guy that looks like that. What are you kidding me? I don't blame them. But at the same time, do you see us protesting?
Right. No,
Do you see us standing outside with signs? Why don't you let a Jew into your country club? What we did was we screwed them. We built our own country club.
There you go. And just think about it. Why would you want to go to a club that doesn't really want you?
Exactly. Exactly. Okay.
We got a call. Paul, how are you this evening?
How are you guys?
Hey, Paul.
Glad to hear from you.
Haven't talked to you for a while, but I got something that I'm a little bit disturbed about. Last week, I read in the paper about the dog catcher being fired on May 28th. Now, do you know that we've been without a dog catcher from almost April until August 1st? And there's been people in the city of Lynn that there are elected officials can't even come out and tell the people that pay taxes and everything in the city of Lynn that we don't have a dog catcher. That we call the police and the poor police, if they can't help you, then you got to take your animal to an out-of-town, veterinarian to get help. I mean, this is a little ridiculous. You wonder why the people of the city of Lynn don't want to do nothing in this city? I'm 60 years in this city. I love this damn city. And, Mr. Crowley will vouch for it because he's a supporter of the Lynn. Joe Spina, you're a great guy for the city of Lynn. The other two guys are great to come in and talk like they are. But, I mean, we need a dog catcher in the city of Lynn. And they're telling me, we're going to replace him. Well, here it is. May 28th, they fire him. Nobody finds out nothing. And it's August 1st, and we still don't have no sign of a dog catcher. I'll let you guys talk about it. Thank you.
I think I know the reason. I think it's because the person that was fired is still getting paid. There's probably no money in the budget to hire one. I think so.
Yeah, but there should be.
There
Paul's
should be, but there
absolutely right.
isn't.
The
I
city
think that's the
requires certain services and certain departments. A dog catcher. I have a pet, and sometimes the people in my neighborhood get upset because my pet takes a hike, right? Luckily, he doesn't attack anybody, But
just poops on their lawn.
Right. Right. Oh, by the way, I forgot to bring this up. Paul, thank you for reminding me. It's official, folks. You can now swim at Kings Beach. Is that right? Swimmable now?
No. I'm not taking any chances at Kings Beach.
Wow.
Okay. They had a big hearing,
They had a big hearing on this
1 week
network.
you can't. 1 week you can. No. I'm not going to that damn water.
Well, there's no poo-poo there anymore?
I'm not trusting it, okay?
Can I just say,
Yes,
I grew up in Lynn, and when we were kids, we used to, we were less than a mile from the ocean. We used to go down there in the summer when it was hot. I never wanted to really go with, it's sand and it's salt and it's blech. Seaweed. Yeah. I don't want to go in there anyway.
I never swim in the ocean anyway, but...
Hey, Joe, can you bring back that cartoon one more time? Because I wanted to ask somebody something.
Yeah, let's get it up there. And this is, by the way, this is the Equality Act. The Equality Act, folks, let me make a statement there.
Basically, a woman is in the bathroom, a man is coming into the same bathroom that the woman is in and saying to her, what are you getting so upset about? This isn't Kansas.
Well, he thinks he's a woman.
But you can do that legally.
Well, and all you have to do is self-declare.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's the way it is.
I can go into North Station when I take the train into North Station.
Thank you, Hirsch.
I can go into the women's room and they can't do a thing about me. A cop comes in and says, what are you doing in the women's room? I said, I feel like I'm a woman, and he can't
least
do
for
a thing
now.
about it.
But
because
isn't that
it's
the
statute, huh?
hold it? We did
Statutory
this
law.
last week. I
Yes,
want
I know, we
to
said the
refresh
same
the
thing.
memory of our
Yeah,
folks.
right.
Wasn't that the Equality Act that was passed unanimously by every Democrat in the House of Representatives?
Right.
Has no prayer of getting through the
Right.
Congress. I mean, through the Senate,
that-
and therefore will die 1,000
That's
deaths.
a state law. That's state law. That's Mass state law.
Massachusetts they
That's
did
a state law.
But I'm talking about federal law. The Equality Act was passed universally by the House of Representatives, correct?
Okay.
That would allow anybody, for Paul, you could go into a girl's room because you felt feminine for the
But hear
moment.
me out. You go into a supermarket, you buy a brand new can of soup that you've never heard about before. You look at what's inside it, you read the can that says the ingredients, but you still never know exactly what it is until you taste it. You've got to open it up and actually taste it.
Right. So,
Well, that's the same thing about human beings.
Right.
You really don't know what they are until you get to know them. It's the
Right.
same thing.
especially when they're in their birthday suit.
But you know what they're allowing? They're allowing male athletes to compete in female sports
Right,
teams.
and it's patently unfair because they are so much bigger and stronger before they made that
I don't know.
alteration.
And they also, scientifically, by the way, because they like to talk about science, they say that it's the hormones that they take don't really break down the testosterone that much. And it remains, it regenerates itself. You know, it's just the way the body is preconditioned.
How do you know this?
Because I was reading an article on it.
Oh, that's how you know this?
Yes.
All right,
yeah.
fine, thank you.
And I was surprised by it, as a matter of fact. I mean, what do you think? I just come in this show and pull things out of the air, or what?
I
think he was implying that maybe you were transgender.
No, I wasn't applying
Well,
anything. I was not applying
I've been
nothing.
accused of being a metrosexual, whatever that means.
That means you use deodorant. That's all that it means.
Exactly.
I like that.
Yeah.
So
that's what
metrosexual uses deodorant and after shave. I
Right.
got that.
That's the difference.
So, folks, look, we try to bring a little different twist to the way life is
Right.
out there. What's important? So it's for you to decide. It's your city. I mean, what do you want from the city of Lynn? That's their decision.
Paul wants a dog catcher.
He's
I agree.
absolutely right. By the way, Paul, thanks for the call. And you want to say something to Paul?
Yes, Paul, you know, I haven't heard from you for a long time, and that time that you got upset with me, which I did apologize to you, I'm very glad that you called in, and I hope that we hear from you again, and someday, if we ever meet, I'd like to buy you a cup of coffee.
You're really going to spring for a cup of coffee?
How
My
about a bagel,
God.
too, for crying out loud?
No, I didn't say bagel, Paul. I said just a cup
I'll
of
buy
coffee.
the bagel.
Okay?
I'll give you the money for
But
the
no,
bagel
seriously,
now.
Paul,
Yeah, he
it's
wants
nice to hear from you. I hope your summer's going well, and God bless you, my dear man.
We're going to have Axelrod, the rabbi, on the what, the 15th?
The 15th, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, he's a lot of fun.
I've never been on when he was there.
Well,
You haven't been on with him?
well,
You're
you're
going
gonna
to
be,
love
okay?
him.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to really
And then we're
love
going
him.
to play 4 rounds of golf.
And,
Okay?
As long as you don't have to play, right?
At a Jewish country club.
also, folks, I got a friend of mine that I ran into, a professor over at Salem University, Dr. Lili, who is from Shanghai, China, and done a lot of work with the Essex Pewter Museum in China, because Salem, by the way, has a long history of association with China.
Yeah, yeah.
And I thought it might be a good idea if I invited him on and we have a discussion about that. The folks out there like the idea, and Paulie, we could really enjoy that.
Right.
And by the way, Malcolm, we miss you.
Yeah,
Make sure
absolutely,
that bride of yours gets healthy again, because we want you back quickly. You can grow your beard, by the way.
All the best to you, Malcolm, and your wife, too.
And his wife, Wendy, yes.
Wendy, please.
Our prayers with her.
Please take
And,
care.
you know, sometimes people say to me, we don't get as much phone calls as you should. We're not trying to hustle phone calls here. Most people who are interested in the show, they'd rather listen to it than call and interrupt it. But if you feel like calling, we want you to call. In fact, next week, you know what? I may not prepare very much. We'll just have a call-in. We'll just have a stream of consciousness. What do you think?
We could do that, yeah.
Huh? Let's try something a
whatever
little
you
different.
Sounds fine.
Next week, folks, stream of consciousness, unless something spectacular happens, and just call in, like Paul did, and tell us about dog officers, swimming down at Kings Beach, whether you will or you won't.
I recommend you not go swimming at Kings Beach.
No, don't.
And Paul, you going to be back again, or are you off to see the wizard?
I'm around. I had to go to New Orleans.
Yeah, you did?
Did you?
Yeah. Really? Wow.
I was down
Did you
there
visit
for,
my granddaughter who's at Tulane?
Oh, I did not. I
You
didn't
should
know
have.
she
You should
was
have let me
there.
know. I would have had you go to Tulane. She is in her last year. She'll be going into senior year as a neuroscientists.
Oh,
Wow, that's awesome.
I'm bragging.
Absolutely, of course.
I got to tell you something about New Orleans.
Yeah.
I mean, look, you hear all the stories about, Mardi Gras and Bourbon Street and all that kind of stuff. Bourbon Street, all it is, remember the combat zone when we were younger?
Oh, yeah.
In Boston?
Oh, I love
That's all it is.
Right.
No kidding.
And it's very small.
It's a street full of 22-year-old drunks that don't know what the hell they're doing and a bunch of strip joints. That's all it is.
Yeah.
It is the most depraved environment I've ever seen in my life.
Worse than Baltimore?
Yeah, and I spent every day.
Bourbon Street.
I was there every night.
Paul, I recall a few years ago when I was hobbling, and you and I ended up in Washington, D.C., which is no garden spot either, remember?
No, I
We stayed
remember.
in Annapolis, which, by the way, is a very, very upscale community.
Yes, it is.
10-hour train ride.
I remember going to the combat zone as a young man, and we would go with a bunch of guys.
Tell that to someone else.
And
You think we believe that?
I believe it.
We caught you
I
at
never
the-
knew what a
we
lap
caught you at
dance
the old
was. I
Howard in
still don't
Scully
know.
Square.
And the strange thing about it is that place no longer exists. There's not even a remnant
I
of
think
it.
there's one bar left. It's a strip joint.
Oh, is that right, really?
Where's that?
In Boston.
Washington Street.
Lower Washington, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one left.
There's a time for everything, Things come and go.
But I was paying $20 for lap dances. You have to- And I didn't even know what a lap dance was. Look, you'll get to know it. I'll just sit on you. You pay $20.
Let me hear this
you get-
back. I can hear this again.
You get this is back in the '60s. You'd have to get
$20 in the '60s was a lot of money.
a lot of money.
fella.
It's like a half a week's pay. And you have to buy this bottle of champagne, for it, which was $20, which was really a $2. It wasn't really champagne, all right. And she would get on your lap, and that's it. That was a lap dance. I still don't understand.
Well, we don't know about it because, we're not like you.
Well,
So
you
how many
did
lap dances did you have
I
before
only
you
could
figured
afford
it out?
one. I didn't have that much money then.
Oh, God.
It's true. It's a true story.
Well, certain things that, there were things in the past. Lynn was an interesting city, by the way. The problem today is it's getting nasty.
Did we have our own mini combat zone around here?
A little bit.
Where would it have been?
Oh, well, we got a wrap, and we'll leave that for next week.
What is killing this city? The same thing that's killing Baltimore too. It's one word: education.
Lack of education.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's education.
Say good night, boys.
Good night.
Good night, boys.
Good night, folks. It's a wrap.
Thank you, Reb Goldman, for the cartoon.
That's all, folks.